Sorry, yeah, I'm talking to everybody. Hopefully I have a short thought this morning. Just something God gave me a while back. In 2 Kings 22, verses 1 and 2, we read, Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. It goes on to say how in the 8th year of Josiah's reign, he began to seek after God. At 16 years old, he began to cleanse the land of all the idolatrous temples and images which had been set up during the reigns of his father and grandfather. And by the time he was 26, he recognized the need to repair the temple, since it had been neglected due to the idolatry of Manasseh and Ammon, the two previous kings. Those who had been tasked with the cleaning soon found the book of the law. The truth had been lost. For 75 years, no one knew God's instructions. They'd lost their value. They were no longer held dear by those whom God had lovingly blessed with the very words of life. But where was the Word of God lost? It was lost in the house of God. It's clear that the priests had at least a rudimentary understanding of the truth, since they had helped instruct Josiah when he came to power. But the depth of the truth and the extent of the sins of the people had been utterly lost. After reading this passage not long ago, it occurred to me that when Jesus was a child, his parents took him to the temple in Jerusalem. And on their way home, each of them thought that Jesus was among their friends and family. But after a full day without seeing him, they became worried. Just as in the days of the king, the Word of God was lost. His parents had neglected to keep track of him. And once again, that we find that the Word of God had been lost within the house of God. The priests, Levites, and lawyers stood amazed at what they should have seen with clarity. But the Word of God had been lost for so long that even the wisest among them couldn't see Jesus for who or what He was. He was the Word made flesh. He knew all things because He had been a part of the creation of all things. Neglect had caused so great a rift between God and His people that they were unwilling to accept the truth of Jesus' identity, because they were sure that they had God perfectly defined and Jesus didn't fit into their mold. God's chosen people could not see Jesus for who He was. His parents may have found Him, but Jesus, the Word of God, remained lost in the temple to the majority of those who should have welcomed Him with honor due His name. And just before the crucifixion, while speaking to Jesus, Pilate asked, "What is truth?" And then He just walked out. He had looked truth Himself in the eye and then left as if there were no answer to the question. If He had only hesitated momentarily, Jesus could have assured him that there is an absolute truth, and only that truth has the power to deliver us from all confusion. So how about today? Where is the Word of God? Can we say with the psalmist, "With my whole heart have I sought Thee. O let me not wander from Thy commandments. Thy word have I hid in mine heart, that I might not sin against Thee. Blessed art Thou, O Lord. Teach me Thy statutes." It's Psalms 119, 10 through 12. Is it enough for us to simply accept what we've been taught as the fullness of the truth, just as the Jews of Jesus' time did? Or do we daily hunger to receive a deeper understanding of all that God would have for His people? Now, praise the Lord for the truth that we have. Praise the Lord for all that we know of the Word of God. But the fullness of the truth has not been exhausted. Even now, many profess salvation and remain deceived as a result of their own neglect of the truth. The Word of God must never again be lost within the house of God. God is calling us to dig deeper and to receive all that He has for us. Are there any prayer requests this morning?